Sure. Thanks, Amon, for the pass off. I appreciate it.
Please don't make it Dadish 2, please. I can only handle one Dadish per episode.
Well, now I gotta find. Let me look through my Steam library because it was Dadish 2. But let me look around.
You just played Dadish 2 without knowing Dadish 1.
Having no experience.
Just jumped in. I would be so confused the Danish timeline.
I feel like I feel like by the second game they've usually ironed out all the problems of the first, so I just start.
What
with
if you start the second game and it's just like picking up like some deep narrative where Danish one left off? Danish climbed the tallest mountain in all of Mountain Olympus or whatever. It's just like...
one of my turnips is. I know that one of my turnips has gone to a different dimension, full of fruits. But now we have to find him, and I have to summon my cousin.
We have to find all the pieces to the star charts.
Yeah, I'm just like, I don't know what's going on here. No,
I love it. This is what I signed up for.
This is amazing.
Dad's in space.
Floor. No, I actually was not Dadish 2. But
Damn it.
Amon, I have a question for you. Have you ever tried to shower with your dad? Let me answer that for you. Yes, because I played Shower with Your Dad Simulator 2015. It's a game on Steam. It's a classic. It was released in 2015, as the title would tell you, and the subtitle is "Do you still shower with your dad?" Now,
I love how you answered if he has showered with his dad because of the game that you played. Anyways, continue.
Absolutely.
Okay.
And I now Shower with Your Dad Simulator 2015 : Do you still shower with your dad? Is an Atari-like looking game. It's very, very low res, like incredibly so. It's definitely like a Flash game styled creation. And the point is, it's really like a matching game where you're a kid and you have to find your dad and just move to him who is showering. And once you find him, you have to do it again because all the dads reset. And there's usually 3 dads.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Wait, question. Is this like a sauna?
No. This ain't no sauna.
This is like a public shower?
Yeah, it seems like almost like
shower?
a pool shower or something. It's weird.
Right.
But it's not. It's the lore is very unclear. It's very Dark Soulsy. You gotta find your clues throughout the game
The
about
Eldritch horror dad.
yeah, well, what's actually going on here. But essentially, you have the choice, and it has a character creation system, which is pretty great. You can either be white, you can be ginger, or you can be black. And your dad will obviously be
the three nationalities.
Those are the 3 nationalities. And
White, ginger, and black.
yeah,
That's my nation.
so you just have to match your character to assumably what your dad is. Now make some assumptions on what your dad's race would be, but that's fair. It's more of a genetic
ginger
thing.
race. Yes.
So if you pick the white guy, he's white and he has black hair. Your dad is white and has black hair. If you pick the black guy, he has obviously a black dad. And if you pick the ginger, it's the white guy with the orange hair. And you just have to make sure that you match up with your dad. And then you don't. Here's where it gets a little bit sketchy. You don't want to pick the wrong dad because then you lose. If you start showering with the wrong dad, you're in trouble, mister. And that's game over.
What do you lose? Your dignity?
The game just ends. It says you picked wrong, and
both.
it's like a score-based game, like any of the old arcade games would be. So you're just trying to get the high score.
Okay. What's this game rated?
I gotta think it's rated mature. I'm trying to see if they
Are the dads clothed?
No, and their wieners are out. Their wieners are out and dangling below
Full
them.
dad dong, yeah.
Yeah, it's full, and this guy they even have the pixels for pubic hair for it. So
Ooh, detail. Nice.
there's a lot of like little details.
Are all dads created equal?
Yes, in this game there's the same amount of pixels. I had a feeling the black one would be maybe a pixel or 2 longer. That's not the case. It's they're all the same length, which is really comforting for people like me. And then there's 2 other modes. So there's a mode where you just have to pick yours, and as you play, by the way, they start adding obstacles to it. It's like there'll be soap on the ground. There will be like a wet spot, which is ironic because shouldn't the whole thing be wet? They're showering, but there is like a wet cone, so you have to dodge that. But they're not. They don't become too much of a problem. Although if you do step on the soap, you start slipping around. So just you gotta be careful. The other modes.
What's the deep lore behind that? Why did they drop the soap?
I don't know. Maybe some of those dads are trying to get some action from some of the other dads.
Ooh, public sauna.
Not bad.
Anyways,
Got to be careful. There's 2 other modes. There's actually probably another mode, but I didn't unlock it. I think you have to get really good at showering with your dad, and I just never elevated to that skill level.
right.
But there's modes where you can reach out as dads fall from the sky and make sure that you're picking the right dad, and you can swap your kid so he's a different race to pick the right dad out of the sky. Just different ways, different plays, but it's all the same thing. Is you just need to find your dad to shower with.
Got it.
Which is something we can all relate to.
Do you think this is a callback? I don't know if you know anything about this, but do you think this is a callback to like those Atari porn games?
I don't know. Could be.
I was just thinking about that because that's a thing.
Is it really?
Yeah. They're all kind of terrible. I accidentally, well, I see accidentally, but recently I was playing on my Pi with my friend David, and I didn't know this was one of them, but we found one of the Atari porn games called X-Man, where like the main game is like a random like maze. You gotta make it through the end of the maze, and you make it through the end of the maze, you get to like fuck a girl. And it was like we were like, whoa! It was just like so like random at the end. We were like, what the hell? It's like Atari pixels of like people having sex. But yeah, there's a few different. Yeah, it was pretty hot. There's a few different Atari porn games. Some of them more commonly known as like Custard's Revenge, which is not. That one's like you're like molesting a woman. It's not great. And then there's like
it's not the good quality porn that
beat them and eat them and stuff. It's like this so like I didn't know if like this was supposed to be like a parody of those like Atari porn game type things. Maybe I don't know.
I would guess not, but I will say that the trailer. If you do nothing else with this game, watch the trailer because it's a parody of a Kanye West song. That's pretty entertaining.
Wow.
You know, I must admit that there was before I would have thought that there would be nothing that would get me interested in Dadish. After listening to this game, I think I'm interested in Dadish. You know, this I've heard them all today.
What's wrong with Dadish, Amar? What's wrong with Dadish?
Nothing now. After listening about this one, I thought it couldn't get any. Well, I was wrong.
What if Dadish and Shower with Your Dad had a baby? Okay, now we're talking. Shower with Your Dadish, yeah.
Shower with your dad. And you're the dad in the shower having to find your kids that are like roaming around in the pool.
Okay, well, if one of the dads is a radish, that makes it easier to find, right?
Yeah,
that's true.
They're all human except for one.
One of these dadish is not like the other.
But yeah, but he still has like a little dadish dong. You know, he's still hanging dong.
Yeah, you gotta hang dong. That's kind of the point of the game, to be fair.
Okay.
Well, you're in a shower, so.
In terms of sexometers, what was your preference?
What was my preference?
Yeah,
which
dads,
are the three nationalities?
Oh, I went with the white with the black hair, just because that speaks to me more. So that's what I went with. But I mean, that's the beauty of this game is that it's for all nationalities. Well, for 3. But it's for those three.
For all 3 of the nationalities.
It'll make those 3 nationalities really comfortable.
White, black, and ginger.
Yeah.
The white nation.
It's the key 3. I mean, as long as you have the top 3, you're fine.
Which nation speaks to you?
I would love if I was filling out like a form and it was like, what nationality are you?
Yeah.
White.
It's like a drop down.
Ginger.
Pick your nationality.
Radish.
Radish.
Yeah. Identify as radish.
The Radish Nation.
All right. The game that I chose for NES month is a game called Crystalis. It is.
Hey, good game.
Yeah, it was developed by SNK, and it's a old school, obviously, action RPG. I'll read the plot synopsis here. Crystalis takes place in a post-apocalyptic world in 2097, 100 years after 1997. October 1st, the end day, when a global thermonuclear war began that reverted civilization to a primitive medieval existence populated with fierce mutated creatures. It reminds me because I just was playing Lies of P, and it's an action RPG, and I feel like Crystalis isn't quite as good as Lies of P. Let me tell you about Lies of P. Lies of P tells the story of Pinocchio, a robotic puppet who differs from other puppets in his ability to lie, which plays a role during important story decisions.
It's a great game. It's got the worst fucking name I've ever heard. Is Lies of P. I hate that name.
Wait, so P stands for Pinocchio. Lies of Pinocchio.
Oh, your P.
Wow,
that comes out of your body.
Yeah.
I think it's a pretty genius name once you understand the gameplay.
You would.
But anyway, so I guess Crystalis is it's kind of like a flag bearer for early RPGs. It's got not necessarily an open world, but you know, it has like an overworld that you walk through, and that's where you do a lot of combat, and then you get into caves and there's a lot of puzzle solving. I like that they have magic, because obviously there's a limited amount of buttons, which makes these kind of RPGs a little tricky on older consoles, but they work their way through it by, if you hold your attack for a longer period of time, you charge up a magic attack and can therefore let loose something. And the magic can not only affect enemies, but also will, you know, solve puzzles throughout the world, like destroy rocks or whatever. I didn't get that far in it, just FYI. But I might continue playing. But it's interesting. It's a little bit slower than you would think like a modern RPG would be. It takes quite a long time to level up, and the controls are a little bit finicky. Again, kind of expected for the time. His sword, he lunges with it, and it's very thin, so you have to be a little bit more precise than what you would consider like how they did action RPGs going forward, where it's more of an arc, and so you can hit like a square above you. It's a little bit more precise than that, and you can end up taking a lot of hits accidentally if you're not careful. Not unlike Lies of P, where you know, it's more like a Soulsborne type, like a Bloodborne-ish game, and you have to be very careful and precise with your attacks. But sometimes you lunge, and you get to pick which one you want to do. And the bosses really challenge you with these big bombastic bits of combat, and it allows you to dodge, which is nice. Unfortunately, Crystalis, there's no dodge button, so it's just up, down, left, right, isometric.
Is this secretly a review of Lies of P?
No, not at all, not at all. I'm making it. It's a personal. I'm reviewing Crystalis, okay. Alex. We're talking about Crystalis here. Please don't derail me. The graphics of Crystalis are nice and bright. Kind of reminds me of like Earthbound, where it has like a lot of earth tones to it. The green is very green. Obviously, it's on the NES, so it has limited specs there anyway. But the overworld is nice. I like the change of pace, and when you're going through like inside dungeon type places, it mixes it up enough where it looks better. This is probably a more advanced NES games. Or advanced NES game than a lot of the older ones. Just you can see that they learned a lot about the graphics at this point, and they were able to do some pretty impressive things. Although I will say, Lies of P, they're able to have a lot more storytelling visually. And while the city looks somewhat familiar, it's definitely in a more futuristic place, which you wouldn't think about when you're playing a Pinocchio game. But it actually does take place in the distant future, where a lot of technology has taken place. And you get to see what happens when man creates robots and they go berserk. That's the excitement of Lies of P. And then
Crystalis,
yeah, that's the excitement of Crystalis that takes place in the future, and it's, you know, post-apocalyptic, you know, explosions, and you're a boy. In Pinocchio, you're a doll.
So
You're very close to being disqualified.
What's up, Brian?
So you played this? Did you play it on a Switch? Is it on a Switch or a collection? How did you play this?
I played this.
Sorry, go ahead.
I played this on the Steam Deck.
Oh, okay. And how far did you get?
I do want to say that Oh, sorry, Brian. For your question, it is on the SNK Anniversary Collection.
Okay, that's what I was wondering. If
Yeah, that's right.
I'm glad you gave it a shot. So you did enjoy it. You think you'll continue it?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay. Yeah, I agree. I think I recently played the Game Boy Color version of this, and the NES version is better. They did fix one thing in the Game Boy Color version. I don't know if you got this far yet. The one thing, like you said, limited buttons. The one thing that's a pain about Crystalis, which I don't like about it, is you get multiple swords.
Mm-hmm.
Certain enemies are only weak against certain types of swords. So if you're in a room with 3 different enemies and one's weak to ice, one's weak to fire, you have to hit start, switch to the fire, kill the one, hit start, switch to the ice, kill the other one, hit start, switch to the lightning, kill the other one. So you're constantly hitting start all the time.
Yeah.
And they fixed that in the Game Boy Color game. So every sword does all the enemies, kills every enemy. You don't have to switch. But the music's a lot worse in the game. They changed the music, which is one of the best parts of Crystalis. The music is Ben Smooche. It's very good.
Yeah. Well, Liza P also has multiple swords you can use. Some of them are lunge, some are more blunt attack, but they're all weapons that he can use and then customize further through other gameplay mechanics. And that's what I like about these.
Did that first boss and Liza P take you forever? Because that first boss took me forever.
No, I just went back and grind a little bit. See, that's why I like this over like a game like an older game, like maybe a Crystalis type game. Is that
Oh my god!
it makes grinding a lot easier to do and more fun. Whereas in Crystalis,
I apologize
in Crystalis
to our people who clicked on the Crystalis review video on YouTube.
In Crystalis,
You clicked on that expecting a review of Crystalis. You did come to the right place. It was
came
the
to
right idea.
the right place.
It was just
So can I ask
I'd
you,
be more upset, but Liza P is very good. I've also been playing that.
so does Liza P, it's a 3D game, I take it. Are the graphics realistic?
Crystalis. Sorry, Crystalis.
Crystalis. We're talking about Crystalis, Brian.
Yeah,
you could
Brian,
have fooled
Crystalis.
me. I didn't know. I heard a lot of Liza P there, so I was like confused there for
Liza
You
B.
gotta get on the Who's level. Won't get fooled again.
Yeah. Okay. So, did you like? I know you're not a big graphics guy, but you like the graphics enough because I think they're pretty colorful. And I mean, you're dealing with the NES, but I thought they did a good job of varying it up. Except for the caves were a little samey, but I mean, what can you do? But
That's still a problem today. Is they just usually caves are just copy pasted assets. But I mean, it was fine. It wasn't ugly. The game. I like some of the effects that it has. Like when you're charging up your weapon, there's this cool. There's like particles that fly around you, which looks nice. It doesn't quite look as good as some modern games like Liza P, but it's.
I would say modern games. Some of them look like trash 3D games, but I like a lot of old looks. So I'm like kind of opposite with you. I like the charm of older sprites. Maybe trash is a little harsh.
Spencer's thing though is that even the best looking game on the NES is an NES game.
I like that look. Is what I'm saying. I like the NES look. I like the sprites. Yeah.
Prove me wrong, Spencer.
There's charm to it for sure, but not as much charm as
Life at
a
P
doll learning
likes to pee. That's what we learned today.
Learning about
likes
humanity.
To pee. That's the sequel.
Spencer, you're playing Liza P on the Xbox, right?
Yeah.
It's a story about Pinocchio using the urinal.
It's on Game Pass, yeah.
Every time he pees, he levels up.
Yep, that's
now. Nintendo does have the NES online, and I think Crystalis might be on there.
That's what I was thinking.
Which is like NES game.
Do you want to know what P in RPG stands for? It's the P in Life of P. You want to know what that is? You got to play it to find out.
Life of Pi?
It's Lies of P. Just over.
Lies of P.
Yeah, because it's Pinocchio. He lies.
Life of Pi is a book.
So in Lies of P, does your nose grow whenever you lie?
Crystalis.
We're talking about Brian. Right, I don't know how many times I have to tell you this. My review is of Crystalis. Please respect the game that I picked.
All right, you picked this. You wanted this. You said, "I'm curious. What did Spencer pick?"
Yeah. And I have an easy, simple game today.
I have a feeling.
Train wreck.
I have a feeling that Spencer's doing a bit.
Excuse me? I'm doing 8 bits.
Spencer doesn't do bits.
I'm doing 8 bits right now. I'm talking about Crystalis.
This like 200 bit
goddamn game
on the Xbox.
No, not on Xbox. We're not talking about that. I don't know where you're getting this from.
Crystalis was on NES.
I'm talking about Crystalis,
Freaking
NES
Steam
Classic.
Deck here.
I don't know. What's this
Talking
game?
about
Life
your
with Penis?
modern console.
Life of Penis. No, I'm talking about an innocent game called Crystalis. You're bringing. See, now I have to change the rating of this review when I release it because of what you
I like
just said.
how in Crystalis,
Wow.
you look like you're like a pink power walker. Like the
Yeah, you
outfit
move
the
very
character
fast. It's
Yeah.
very
looks like they're
ease-like.
power walking.
It's very ease-like.
Yeah,
It
which
looks
reminds me of
like
in Liza P, where you run and like Liza P.
Yeah,
You
I don't
right?
know Liza P.
yeah, you can
I think
sprint
what-
through the world and
Yeah, I
quickly
think
attack.
it was Terry who mentioned that it's very ease-like, and I kind of agree with that.
Terry mentioned Liza P.
Well, Liza P.
Yeah,
Is ease
Because
like
we're
P?
working on
It
Crystalis,
sounds
right?
like ease.
I'm confused.
It would
Okay.
be plural.
We're,
it would be
we're
like
talking
the
about
peas.
Crystalis.
I
Right?
keep getting interrupted when I'm talking about Crystalis, and I'm a little bit offended by it. A little bit.
Okay.
So maybe
Okay, are we
can,
done?
Sorry.
We're done with the bit.
can we bring it back to Crystalis, please? I want to.
I would like.
Yeah.
I would like
Okay.
questions about Crystalis.
You keep bringing up this.
Sure.
Liza P
I've
thing.
never. That was just an example that I
The
brought up
thing is-
once.
Okay. Well, you brought it up a little
Once
more than
too
that.
many.
Okay, Crystalis, please. Let's get back to it. You're playing as
How does it
Pinocchio.
compare to Liza P?
Yeah, it's not as good. But that
Okay.
it's an NES game. You can't expect it to be as good as a game that came out, a month ago on an
Agreed.
Xbox
Last
Game
month.
Pass.
I strongly disagree with that statement.
You disagree with that?
Yeah, there's a lot of NES games I've played now. I'm finding out about that are a lot better than a lot of new stuff today.
Oh, wow.
Well,
Boom, boom.
I just want to make it known.
How
that's
do you
all.
respond to that, Spencer?
Crystalis
Yeah.
ain't
Eat
one of
that
them.
Yoshi's cookie.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well,
Liza P.
this extent-
Liza P seems real good, but if you played Yoshi's Cookie,
Brian has it.
There's
and I
always-
sent it
there's-
to him, and he hasn't
No, I played it. I had you on stream once when I played it.
it.
The real
anyway,
question is Crystalis versus Yoshi's Cookie. Yeah, that's a feud.
whoa, there you go. That's the competition I want to see.
Are you good enough to get Yoshi's cookie?
Are
Community
you a
discourse?
cookie enough dude to beat Yoshi's Cookie?
I did it for the cookie. For the cookie.
No.
Today I'm talking about Dragon Quest III HD 2D remake. I have a lot to weird things to say about this game. I've played Dragon Quest III twice officially before this. Once on the Game Boy Color, and once on the Super Nintendo. I played a translated version of it. Both of those are fantastic. There's also a Switch version which is good too. It lacks some of the art style that people like from the series, but I think it's still fine. But now there's this one. And if you haven't played Dragon Quest before, I think 3 is probably the quintessential Dragon Quest. Like, if you could play 3 and kind of understand how the entire series plays, because this is really the branching off point of where they really knew what they wanted with this series, and they take this concept and apply it to all the rest of them. 1 and 2 play a little different, which are also going to be remade next year in the same style. This is a HD 2D remake. I know Alex hates these. I think it looks pretty good. Could look better. I don't know, but it looks pretty good. The changes are there aren't that many changes I feel from the original, although the characters have been reworked a little bit, like the classes. This is a class-based game. The classes have been reworked a little bit. There's a new class called Monster Guy. Can't remember the full name. Monster Masher, Monster Wrangler, something like that. He plays Pokemon, I guess. But otherwise, it's pretty similar to the original. Boy, I got some questions about this. I'm all for these remakes or whatever, these remasters. Do they have to be $60? Like, this is a remake of an NES game. Let's be real. This game came out in like 1989 or something in Japan, and then a little later here. But yeah, this is a remake of a game from that era. It's hard for me as if I step away from being a fan and looked at it as like a casual person who's like, what's up with Dragon Quest? and they showed me this, and they're like $60. I think I'd be a little hard pressed. I think I'd have some questions about that, because you put this up next to like God of War, like Baldur's Gate, Elden Ring. Like if you put this up to those, I wouldn't pay the same price for this that I would pay for this. I know some of those are 70, but regardless, a full price game. So I'm a little bit irritated by that. I think a $40 price would have actually been perfect for this, but I don't know how well it sold. I'm sure it sold like shit in America. That's how these games tend to do. But in Japan, it was a pretty big deal. 3, if you want to know the history, was, I think, the first really good Dragon Quest game that came out. Although technically 2 is rated higher in Kotaku, but I think 3 is much, much better. And it does tie into 1 and 2. I recommend you play 1 and 2 first, but 3 does tie into those in a very interesting way. Is it good? Let's talk about, is the game good or not? It's very good. It's a very, very good game. Very classic RPG, turn-based. Gotta have some patience, although you can put the speed up really high, which makes the battles a little faster. If you don't put up the speed, if you don't bump up that speed of the battles, they're ridiculously slow. I don't know who thought that was acceptable, but it's absurdly slow. So make sure you change the speed to ultra fast. But aside from that, it plays like a classic RPG. I feel like there's more story in this than the original, although I could be wrong. Maybe the world being more detailed has made me more immersed. But in a lot of ways, it feels like a brand new retelling, like a brand new game. But I know that it's 3, so I think that's a mark of a successful remake. Is if I feel like I'm playing something new, but also realize that I've played this before. It's a weird dichotomy there. But it's a good game. I give it a lot of props. Some of the way that the environments are organized, there's a lot more room for finding secrets and discovery across the map. So really good game. Don't know if it's worth $60 if you're not a Dragon Quest fan. You should probably wait for a sale, which pains me to say that because I want the series to do well. But this should not be $60. But it is a good game.
Yeah. I have nothing to say on Dragon. Yeah, it is interesting to. I mean, I don't like Dragon Quest, but just to like follow the series as of late, because the 2 games before this were like the garbage games, right? They're like the Prince one and then the Infinity Slash or whatever the hell it's called. So the fact that they did put this out at such a high price still makes me question the management over there and what the hell they're doing.
This kind of reminds me. Oh, sorry,
it's an NES game. You're good.
Kind of reminds me when you were questioning, like, is it really worth the $60 price tag? With Captain Keaton talking about the Link's Awakening remake, and at some point in one of his conversations, the comment was made. Actually, I think I made it, where it's like they clearly didn't just come up with this visual style to use it for the one game. In which case, yes, full price is still over asking, but justifiable maybe. But then they go on to use the same graphics and the same engine and whatever all that stuff works with the programming for Echoes of Wisdom. And Spencer, you're saying that they're going to do 1 and 2 in the same style. It's like, why not just give us the first trilogy in the same engine of 2.5D graphics and whatever you're working with, $40, $40, $40. Ta-da!
1 and 2 will be packaged together. So
my point is more just like the resources now are there. The plan was there to do more than the one game in the first place.
Right.
It's not like you're hiring the team to work on this thing from scratch and then you dump them as soon as the game is done. You're going to make continued sales as the series continues in the same engine. So, I haven't played it, so I can't comment on stuff like that.
I agree with that. Is clearly this is, and it's not like HD2D is new. This is like Octopath Traveler, that kind of thing. So it's the same group, same concept.
It's like the 5th game, right?
Is it? They did. It's like who? What else was it? It was a.
Did Live Alive have these graphics as well?
Yeah, Live Alive was one of them.
Yeah,
and
I think there's Triangle game.
Is Triangle Strategy considered this 2D HD?
Yeah.
Because it's not a remake, but it is in that style. Yeah. So
it's in its art style though. So
then the 2 Octopath Travelers.
There's another game that I can't remember, but I think it went also from 3DS to PC. Something where like you're a band of adventurers. Your main character is a blonde guy. You move through the world, kind of like a bit of an isometric view for the overworld. And I think it's got like a guild system. Anyways, it's gonna maybe come to me later. But I think Alex's number of like 5 or so games is correct.
Yeah.
And there's gonna be more.
And I think it's great. I mean, they're able to move these into a new era that's sort of paying homage to the old, but still looks kind of new. I get it. It looks nice. But I just don't know if... I really do question the $60 price tag for it. It's asking a lot. And I'm afraid that like people that aren't familiar with the series would look at that and be like, why would I... why would I pay that? And if they did pay it, now they're like, this game is nowhere near the visual fidelity of like any modern game.
The problem, the problem is that not only that, but they've already pre-established a value for this game technically with the other port on Switch. It's like $15 or whatever it is. I don't know how much it is, but that one. Which I get is like an Android port, but still, it's the base contents. It's still the same game for the most part. So you've already set a precedent of like, okay, this is how much it's worth, and you're saying actually, since we painted it with a new coat of paint, it's $60 now, and that's such a Nintendo move because they do that shit constantly. Like I think it was Country Returns Tropical Freeze on Switch. If it was $60, when previously, like the year prior on Wii U, they had it as a Nintendo Select for $20, and then they said actually now it's $50 because it's on the Switch, and that's such a Nintendo thing to do. So it's like I don't know, it's like it feels like Square is taking a note from Nintendo and being like, well, it's prettier now, so it's $60.
Yeah, and you have to remember that this is a series that's for Japan. This has never been that successful here. So in Japan, this is a huge deal. And this was actually just dethroned like this week as the top selling game in the country. So here it's like nothing. I have no idea how it sold here. I can't imagine very well. But in Japan, it was a big deal. So I kind of get it for them. But to keep it the same thing for us is strange. Because nobody really likes Dragon Quest here.
I think it's popular. 11 did really well for the series. It became like a mainstay title, a household title now.
11 did well. But if you look at the other games that came, so like you'd think, okay, if we're gonna gauge 11 doing really well. By the way, they sold like 50 billion different versions of that game on different things, and it's been on sale. I saw pretty quickly for like $20 as a $60 game. But that aside, that game, if you're saying that game did well, yes, that game alone did pretty well. But if you're saying, did it make Dragon Quest a big deal in the West? If you look at the games that sold after that game, we're talking like Dragon Quest Treasures, which was a nightmare. Dragon Quest Infinity Strash, which you brought up, a nightmare. Dragon Quest Monsters 4, The Dark Prince, horrendous. Like those games, and part of that is Square's problem because they released a bunch of games like in a row. But the other part is you can also look at, is Dragon Quest a success? And that to me still says not quite. I don't think it's really become a huge deal here in America yet.
Well, here's what we have so far, according to multiple websites, is one day ago, a lot of these articles were being published. So a month of sales, we're hitting 2 million units worldwide, with Japan accounting for at least half of them.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Well, I mean, I think I actually want to do a video on like what makes a video game successful based on the sales units. You're 1 month in and you're approaching 1 million for, again, what they're calling a remake of a game. So I think that's the most important point about this price tag, right? Because they remade the game. Okay, they didn't have to rework the script or anything like that, but they built a game from the ground up. So it's got a full price tag on it. I think the problem is the fact that, yeah, it's the titling. Dragon Quest III HD 2D Remake is the full title. So you are going to hamstring your sales when you're releasing a remake like that. I'm okay with the price because they built it from the ground up. Doesn't mean I'm going to buy it full price. And I think right now the sales are pretty good. I mean, what should we expect for a remake? Like, this is the problem. I have no idea what to really compare it to.
Well, Final Fantasy VII had a game called Final Fantasy VII Remake. I think it sold a lot better than this.
Yeah.
But it's like that's like a different ballpark, though. I mean, for one, that game's completely different than from the original, but also the graphical style from 7 PS1 to 7 Remake is like astounding, right? And then you look at this, and it's like, yeah, it looks nice, but
well, that's kind of that's kind of what I mean.
3D game, yeah, yeah. I mean, if they did Dragon Quest as like a 3D game, like Dragon Quest 3 as a 3D remake, like that might be more.
Yeah, it's like if only they had. If only they had an engine that they could run Dragon Quest 3 in, that where it would look like a modern game. Oh, they made a game called Dragon Quest 11. Just make it look like that.
Yeah, they already have. yeah. That's literally all they have to do is make that style of game, but for 3. And it's a shorter game, right? So it's not like they have to make the full length of 11.
Right. Yeah, I don't know. I love the game personally. I look at it more as like from an overview. And I have problems when I look at it that way. But as a fan, I love it. So
kind of strange. You feel like with the Dragon Quest brand, it should do more than, for example, I'm looking at Bravely Default 2. So Bravely Default 2 and Dragon Quest 3. Now, obviously, like one is years and the other's a month. But I don't see Dragon Quest 3 going more than another like 500,000 in its lifespan.
Yeah.
Maybe more people pick it up as it goes on sale, but I mean, people are waiting for 12, right? They're not waiting to go back in time to play a remake of 3. Yeah. So, I don't know. It's so interesting. Again, I want to look at like what do these numbers translate to? How do you actually quantify or qualify them? Okay, so it's comparable to Bravely Default 2. Okay, so did it do good as a remake or did it not? Did it do well as a Dragon Quest game or did it not? But
I think one way you can quantify it is next year when they release 1 and 2. In the same style and see if that sells well.
You know what? I will not be surprised if those sell even worse, honestly.
You would suspect that they would have to sell worse, but the amount of which they would sell worse would be.
I think also the longer they wait to get to 12 or 12's release date, the more people are going to go, well, I'm only going to buy one Dragon Quest game, in the next 6 months. Yeah. So I'm not going to buy 1 and 2 if they're releasing, if 12 is around the corner. People do that, right?
Mm-hmm. That's true.
It's easy for me to be like, just get all the games. But I mean, even me, I don't buy any game like full price except for Elden Ring and Tears of the Kingdom. Everything else I usually get to like 2 or 3 years later. So, interesting.
Yeah, and with a big game like that, yeah, it's hard to keep up anyway. Like,
yeah,
I mean, I'm the same way. I don't buy a lot of full price games. I buy a lot of games on sale or stuff. So I have to really care. And it was like, even whenever Tears of the Kingdom came out, sorry, Justin, I didn't buy it because a month later Pikmin 4 was coming out, and I was waiting for that boy. So it's like, yeah, it was the same thing. It was like, well, Nintendo.
It'd be so interesting is if you could just get a little bit of insight and information into what Square is thinking, and if they told you, like, they'd be happy with projected sales of 1, 2, and 3 remakes being 5 million or something like that, right?
Yeah.
What does email them?
These companies never say anything to you, so
I'll get Alex on it. He's good at emailing these companies and getting to the bottom of it.
Yeah, we'll send him Dear Square Enix.
Yeah,
I need to know. Do you like Dragon Quest 1 and 2?
Do you like the game that you made?
Do you like the game? Yeah, I do.
How good you think it's going to sell? Okay, I need to know. My podcast needs to know. Thank you. I love you.
Yeah, I love you.
No, 60's 60's a lot though. Like I'm thinking, like, if I was a Switch owner and I was in the mood for a classic NES RPG, right? Even if the game looks beautiful, which I don't necessarily think it does, but still, even if the game looks fantastic, it's still a classic NES RPG, and I can pay $60 for one classic NES RPG, or I can pay the $75 it is for all 6 of the Final Fantasy remasters, the Pixel remasters. It's like,
Yeah.
I got 6 classic RPGs now, you know? So that's also them shooting themselves in the foot for value, I think.
Well, not to mention that the first 2 times I played this game, it was on an emulator.
Yeah.
So I didn't pay anything for them. I paid nothing.
Did you notice anything about this apparently improved lighting system and reflections as well? Like apparently the way that the lights are cast as your characters are moving through the dungeon, the shadows and everything are dynamic with the movements of your character.
Does it look less like Christmas light throw up? Because that's my problem with a lot of the HD2D games. It's just a lot of clutter on the screen.
It's not as offensive as Octopath Traveler. Octopath is a lot to look at. This is more clean, like more of a Dragon Quest look. As far as the lighting goes, yeah, I can tell it's dynamic. I can tell like as you're walking, the shadows are based off of a light source. I'm just, the bar at this point is like, I think we're at an age where 3D gaming is so prevalent that like that shouldn't be like me congratulating them on fixing a light source. Like any game built in the Unreal Engine will have that solution. Like
I think there's also a question of like why this game and why now? And I understand from the business perspective, it's not the same amount of work and investment to make these kinds of games. For example, with the Link's Awakening remake, you know, you can put that out and it can basically bolster your budget and make some sales for the next big Zelda game, as opposed to having nothing, right? It's cheaper to just hire the staff and crank out a Link's Awakening remake than it is to do. It's not cheaper, obviously, it's profitable. So you may as well do it. But, like, yeah, why not 1 and 2? Why are we skipping to 3? And if you're a potential fan who's on the fence about Dragon Quest as a whole, hello, like I am. Okay, well, what am I supposed to do with 3 releasing right now? Do I put it on my shelf and I'll wait until 1 and 2 come out and I'll play those first so I can play them chronologically? I don't know. I know I get a little neurotic and I have a lot of weird compulsions about how I do things and play things, but I know I'm not alone. And so when a company is just like, yeah, we're releasing the 3rd game remade, it's not as simple as Final Fantasy VII that had the cult following and was the Final Fantasy game to play. No one was telling their friends, man, if there's one game you play before you die, oh, it's got to be Dragon Quest 3. It is so good. It is the Dragon Quest.
I have 2 answers to your question, actually. Well, one of them is not really an answer, but one answer is in Japan, this is a huge deal. This game is monumental in Japan. And that's kind of what I'm saying is like, I get why it's in Japan, $60 full price. And then, yeah. In Japan, this is a huge deal. In America, nobody gives a shit. Nobody gave a shit when it came out in the NES. It was incredibly a disaster in sales. I don't think they released it in a lot of other countries. So it's a disaster everywhere else. But yeah, so that is a strange business decision that seriously reflects Japan. As far as chronologically, I don't want to spoil it.
I've heard a little about that. Yeah.
Okay, but this game is part of 1 and 2 in an interesting way.
Yeah.
I think that's enough for Dragon Quest. Well, if you know me, RPG Archive, you could probably have a good guess as to what Capcom game I played. And you would be correct. It is
Monster Hunter.
Mega Man X.
Onimusha.
Goof Troop. I played Goof Troop for the Super Nintendo.
Yes!
That was
My
my
second guess was Pocahontas, but you know what?
It's close. It's close to Pocahontas. It's basically Pocahontas too. I used to play this. We rented this at least 3 times from Blockbuster as kids because I'm a twin, so I always had a second player to play with. So any game that had 2-player was a huge win for us. Never beat it as a kid. I don't know. I guess this was too hard for us. Which now that I've played it now, it has me a little bit worried about our level of intelligence. Maybe my mom isn't telling us everything. But Goof Troop is a puzzle action game, isometric, where you go through a pirate themed world trying to save Well, I don't want to spoil it. There's a little spoiler for it, but it follows, Max and Goofy on their little adventure in a tropical paradise, and it's a lot of puzzle and a little bit of combat and a lot of bit of charm, as I think we can all expect from Capcom. Really, really fun game. It's really easy. Really, it's pretty short. But if you're a fan of Goof Troop, which I don't even think we saw Goof Troop as kids because we didn't have cable or anything, and we didn't really go to movies much. But we knew who Goofy was, so that probably helped. And I think we knew tangentially who Max was, just from like seeing pictures or whatever. But we loved it. And I actually texted my brother that I finally beat it, so we can put that one to rest. So he was really thrilled. There's not a whole lot to say. I mean, it's a surprising amount of block puzzles, which I love block puzzles. I think those are so much fun. So any opportunity I can get to do that, I will take. There's really one weapon in the game. It's the hook shot, which is the greatest weapon ever. Like any Zelda fan will tell you that too. It works similarly. You can like hook onto things and get dragged there. You can hook onto items and it pulls them to you. You can hit enemies with it. It's the perfect item. And then there's a shovel that you can use very sparingly. I think when I saw the use of the shovel, I think I realized like where they cut some corners in the game, because you can only shovel sideways. You can't shovel forward, and I assume they just never wanted to animate it, because you can do everything else in multiple directions, but that one you can't. They probably just were too lazy to animate it, so there's only shoveling sideways. And then there's a bell that's a really interesting concept for a Super Nintendo game, because the bell attracts enemies and it changes their, like how they want to, like if they hear the bell, they start running towards you. And I was really surprised. I forgot that was a mechanic in this game. So you can manipulate the enemies to go in certain ways and then kill them or just bypass them. So like it almost had like stealth elements to it, which was kind of bizarre for a Goof Troop game.
Goofy.
Goofy, use the bell to get past the guards. That was kind of interesting and a really fun take on it, which I never picked up on as a kid. Like that would have just gone over my head. And then there's a candle. In the rare instances, the room is very dark. It helps you see better. I think that was it for. I mean, if you want to count, there's planks, but those are more puzzle items. But that's it. And then there's some really, really inventive bosses. I think Capcom is known for having some really cool boss fights, and this Goof Troop is no exception. There are phenomenal boss fights that have sometimes multiple like layers of action. Like once you get past a certain point, they pick up steam. Really, really inventive, really clever, really fun game. I really recommend it for anybody just looking for a fun couple hours to play Goof Troop. It's a game that didn't need to happen and somehow did, and it is phenomenal. Like they could have just made another side scroller like they've made a million of that are also really good, and I think people would have been happy, but they went with a really creative route, and I think it's a pretty memorable experience.
Yeah, this game always felt like the multiplayer Zeldas to me, like the Triforce Heroes or the Four Swords games.
Yeah.
Where it's like a multiplayer Zelda dungeon experience almost.
Yeah.
Very cool.
I don't think I ever played this one. Is Pluto in the game?
No.
Do you find it weird that two talking dogs have a dog that can't talk as their
I
pet?
knew this was coming.
I mean, it could be some weird government experiment. Like let's get all these animals together and give some of them superhuman powers, and then others will remain just a dog, and then see how they all react to it.
He's just a lower class dog. He's not allowed to speak.
Right. Not allowed to speak. I like that.
This was before they got freedom, yeah.
Yeah.
What's the combat like? You said there was a little bit of combat in the game.
It's mostly using the hook shot to stun enemies, and then you can throw pots at them. Kind of like Zelda, you can throw pots at things. Same thing here.
Okay, so you stun them and then pick a pot up and hit them with it.
Yeah. Oh, and they can throw like in the later stages of the game, the enemies can throw pots at you, but if you hold your hands up, you can catch them and then throw them back.
Mode.
Yeah, yeah.
Get mode.
Get mode, bitch. That's Goofy says that. It's really weird.
Get mode, bitch.
Yeah.
As far as cartoon games, where do you rank this one?
Oh, this is S tier. It's easy, but it's such a good time, especially with another player. It's a timeless game. I remember playing it as a kid, and I had just as much fun now playing it. I mean, it was a lot easier.
What's the best block puzzle that you experienced recently? This game.
Towards the end, some of them get pretty complicated. So you'll have basically obviously it's a grid. You do the block puzzles are in grids, and you need to get the block onto a certain marked position. And sometimes you're given 2 blocks and then little things inside of it that you can knock the blocks into. And sometimes towards the end of the game, you had to knock the blocks into each other just to maneuver it. Really, really fun, really creative. I almost wish they just made mini games of just doing the block puzzles, because that would be a fun challenge.
Cool.
Oh, and I remember when I played this 2-player, I only played it by myself this time, but when I used to play it 2-player, if you kicked the blocks into each other, the blocks would explode, and then you could kick the blocks into your teammates and they would die, and it led to many shouting matches between my brother and I. Stop!
2-player co-op?
Yeah, 2-player co-op.
Nice.
Whole way through. Yeah, it is. I didn't even think about it that way, but it is kind of like a 2-player Zelda game in that way, which is in the Super Nintendo era was pretty crazy.
Goof Troop.
Yeah. Capcom put they made a lot of these Disney games back in the 90s and in the 80s, and they put way more work into them than they should have.
Oh yeah, yeah. They by no means had to do any of this, but they did, and I commend them for it.
Would you hire them to mow your balls?
Oh, absolutely. I would hire Max because he looks like he needs some money.
Hey, keep going. I'll be right back.
Okay.
What you said it was up in the S tier. What other cartoon game would you put up there?
Mickey Mouse, the Illusion? House of Illusion? Castle
of Illusion. Yeah, that one.
That one, I remember just the art style is so cool, especially for a kid. It's mind blowing to see it in action. Good game. I haven't played DuckTales, but I hear it's really good. So, probably that too. All right.
Cartoon games do you put in S tier, Axel?
Oh, yeah.
I have no idea. That's why I was asking. I was wondering, like where it stands, because I've never played Goof Troop. I played DuckTales. I don't think I played Mickey Mouse either, though. I played Lion King.
Castle of Illusion is really good.
Was that on Super? Oh, Genesis?
Might have been I think it was a Genesis game.
I'm speaking about the Super Nintendo one because I never would have played the Genesis. So I don't know if it's necessarily called that, but there's a Mickey Mouse game on the Super Nintendo that is very nice. I might have misspoken on the title, but that's the Castle of Illusion is famous for being pretty good. All right, I'm good to pass it on.
Speaking of taste, why don't you talk to us about what you tasted?
I'm very curious because we had a visual novel, an online zombie shooter, and a spaceship shooter. So whatever you cap it off with, Spencer,
it's a banger.
It's a whammer.
It's a whammer.
Certified whammer.
Boy, do I have a whammer for you. It's a PS1 classic, and technically we're recording this in October, so I'm celebrating the Halloween season by playing
October. Oh my gosh, you played Croc again?
yeah, yeah.
Croctober?
I'm making sure this year that I review all the Croc games. That's my goal.
Actually wearing Crocs while he reviews it.
Yeah, and playing it. No, unfortunately it's not a Croc game. Although that should be on the list. Actually, it's a PS1 horror game that goes by the name of Parasite Eve.
Hey!
Yeah. It is my first time playing it. I was really, really excited. I've always heard like about it through the community and through just I knew about it as a kid too. It was weird, but really phenomenal game. It is a PS1 RPG / horror game. So it tries to take some of the best elements from RPGs and mash them up with like a Resident Evil style game. And I think it does it with pretty damn good success. You're following a female cop who for some reason isn't exploding like everybody else is. And you and you take her through this story fighting like everything from like morph dogs to like weird creatures that I don't even necessarily know what their origin would be, but they're just gross creatures. And the combat it's turn-based in a way, like an active battle system, but it's also you get to move around in the combat, and you can dodge their attacks, and you can run away, and you shoot them, and it costs ammo, so you can't necessarily, a friend of mine when I was playing it, he told me that you couldn't farm in the game, and maybe he just hadn't played it in a while, but technically you can farm if you pick the right areas, because the ammo you'd think would prevent you from farming, but there are some enemies that give out a lot of ammo once you kill them, so you can kind of restock, refight them over and over again. But really, really good battle system. It's really, really solid. I wish that the game was like more recent. If a more modern take happened, I think they could polish it up and make it even better, which would be great.
The Xbox is remastering right now, or is it a different one?
Is there a remaster of it?
Not yet, but I think I might be wrong. I don't know if it's Parasite Eve but they are remastering something old.
That's Perfect Dark. I think you're thinking
Perfect
of that
Dark. All right, see, they're both starts with a P. Come on, give me a break.
Both
what?
It's a survival horror RPG developed by
Should be Square
Enix and published for PS4 and PS5. It's a remake.
Really? That'll be phenomenal. I'm excited.
Oh no,
for
this
that.
is from Game Ideas fandom.
Oh,
I was like, this is not. I've not heard of this.
This is from notgonnahappen.com.
Xbox
Yeah,
is working.
this is for toobad.org.
What was that, Leo?
Myth.net.
There's one that Xbox is working on right now, not PlayStation. Is that Perfect Dark?
That would be Perfect Dark.
Yeah, it's Perfect Dark.
So which is the one that Teddy just talked about right now?
Doesn't exist. It's not real.
It's not real. It should be though. It should be though because it has a good fan base.
Fake news.
Yeah, yes, that's fake news.
You are fake news.
Parasite Eve remaster debunked.
Oh, that'll be a good headline. Let's make that our clip. No, it would be a great remake option because it's got like everyone seems to like this game and for good reason. It's pretty good. And
Faber loves it.
Does he? Oh, okay.
I love it. It's a great game.
Yeah. I'm super impressed.
That's the one that the rat has a transformation that freaks everybody out?
Yeah, like his face like splits open, it's like and
yeah,
gross.
Yeah, a lot of like The Thing. You can see the influences from The Thing in there, which is really nice to see. It's one of my favorite horror gross out movies, I guess. The plot is it's interesting. It's very, very science focused, which I don't understand any of it, but I'm just happy that they went so deep into it. Talked about mitochondria and how they manipulate it to make super creatures. That's about all I get from it. I don't know. Maybe there's more. I haven't officially beaten it. I'm at the very, very end, and I'll be finishing it off today. So I'm really, really excited to wrap it up.
I would not recommend you play the sequels.
I heard that the sequels weren't as good, so I'm a little disappointed.
Dust them under the rug. Don't just forget about them.
Okay.
The second one, the second one ditches anything RPG related. It's just Resident Evil, and then the third one on the PSP, which is the third birthday, is just a shooter.
Okay, well that's a bummer.
Yeah,
but
yeah, it's sad they haven't revisited the first game.
But I'm really, really impressed by the unique blend of RPG versus horror. I don't know if it's ever been done in the same way since. But I really, really like it, and I think there is something to RPG management adding to like suspense in a video game if you do it right, and I think this game does it right.
Man, I love that like opening number too, like the theme. The damn it. I don't know how many times I've like put turned on the first game just to hear that.
Then
the piano comes in, it's like
oh, it's fucking badass. Like PS1 games back in the day when they had like their opening cutscenes, they put it all on the table. Like they showed all their cards on those. They're always freaking rocking. Yeah.
Is this in your top 10 PS1 games?
I think it is. It's really, really solid. It's surprisingly solid. And I don't have any reason to be surprised. Everyone has told me it's great. But I didn't think, because I'm not a big horror guy. Like, I don't really like playing horror games that much. And to be honest, this game isn't that scary. But it just does everything really, really well. And if you were like a big Resident Evil fan and you're like, but I really like JRPGs, like, this is perfect. It's perfect for it.
How well does it? Not big into horror, right?
No.
Does the horror remind you of like Western horror or like more kind of Japanese horror?
What?
I asked you like a horror fan question. What I mean by that is
Western.
like a more on the grotesque, or is it more on like the psychological?
Probably grotesque.
Yeah.
Like they have like in some of the opening scenes, they've got heads that just ooze their innards out of their eyeballs, and they just like melt in their chairs. It's pretty grotesque, but in a really fun way. I think it's not. I mean, it's PS1 graphics, so nothing looks like lifelike or anything. It's fun.
Yeah, you see like the pre-rendered cutscenes, and it's like all gruesome, and then it goes back to the gameplay, and it looks like a shitty little like pixelated thing. You're like, that's not what was in that cutscene.
Shitty, but it has the pre-rendered backgrounds of the PS1 era, which I adore. Anything can have that, and it's already like halfway decent to me, just because I love the look.
Square using that Final Fantasy VII money.
Yeah. Yeah.
Supposedly, this was based on a book.
Oh, is it?
Have you read it?
Huh? Supposedly.
He's halfway through it right now.
Myth.
Yeah. According to videogameideas.com.
Yeah.
You gotta stop using that website, dude.
To the fandom. Yeah. This is just speculation, but it might be based on a book.
You got me so excited for a minute. You got me so excited for a minute because I was like, oh my god, new Parasite Eve, because they fucked that series over. Man, that third game is like the main. Okay, so the first game, the main character is, well, it's always been Aya Bray, but she's like she's a pretty strong female character in the first Parasite Eve game. Mm-hmm. But by the third game, it's like there's a mechanic to where she starts like losing articles of clothing, like it like rips away while she's like fighting and stuff, and it's like,
you're trying to tell me not to play this game?
I'm trying to tell you, like, yeah, but it just feels like after playing the first game, it feels wrong. You know what I mean? It's just like that character's more than
That's
that.
The first thing I thought. I wish this character had less clothes when I was playing this.
Parasite Eve cross Akiba strip.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it's like if I was playing Metroid, it was like Samus loses her clothes when she gets hit. And I was like, that's not right.
I ought to get hit a lot.
Oh, no. How are we going to save Metroid now?
How are we going to save Metroid?
No.
That's not the classic.
You go into morph ball mode.
Want to know?
First to the last Metroid.
Are you planning on doing something with your channel, Spencer?
Yes.
You don't have to answer that if you don't want to. Okay.
Well, I mean, it'll be done by now because it'll be in October.
Oh, okay. Cool.
The channel, Spencer. None of you guys are showing up on my feed.
I don't do the Itch Network anymore. I do RPG Archive.
That's why. I knew that. No, but I think I'm sub to all of you guys, and I haven't seen in my feed in a while. Like every time when I do see, I watch it. There was one. Well, never mind.
Talk about that off camera.
Yeah.
Speaking of strong opinions in Arizona, we got our last game.
Strawberry opinions.
Strawberry opinions in Arizona.
Home of the ice cream.
Home of the melted ice cream.
Yeah.
Hot.
Cactus flavor.
Yeah. Cactus.
Ooh. Let's delete it.
Rock flavor.
I'll try it.
It's got like the thorns in it though. It's the
in the ice cream.
Yeah, in the ice cream. Do you want it real or not?
The flavor might be so good it's worth it. Right? It's worth the pain.
Yeah, the prickles, the pricklies.
Free toothpick.
My tongue may be bleeding, but my heart isn't.
Challenge.
Yeah.
Arizona cactus ice cream challenge. Can you eat the ice cream without piercing your tongue?
It's just like an awful thumbnail of you like with like things coming out of your freaking mouth. Like bleeding and stuff. It's like, but it tastes so good. All right, my game. I do RPGs, so I picked an RPG. I don't know that I'll finish it, but my favorite game is Chrono Trigger, and I noticed that a lot of RPGs stay away from time travel, and rightfully so. It's kind of a disastrous thing to do. Some of them have like little hints of it, like Dragon Quest V has an element of it, but nobody usually makes it like a big gameplay mechanic. So it's always nice to see one try it. Now, this game, not a lot of people talk about, but the ones that do talk about it seem pretty high on it. And I've had it downloaded for a little bit, but never really invested time into it, hoping that I would someday. And I guess this was the perfect opportunity to, because it's eShop month. So my game is Radiant Historia: Perfect Chronology. It is a remake of a Nintendo DS game, obviously called Radiant Historia, and it deals with time travel. I am not far in this game at all, so there's probably a lot that I'm missing about it, and just looking at some of the pictures that I see, I haven't seen some of this stuff yet, so I don't want to give any full-on like amazing reviews of it. I'm just going to give you my impressions of what I've played so far, and even the story, I don't even think I'm anywhere near being able to explain what's going on. But I start out with this guy. He's got red. He's all in red, and he's blonde. And it's a turn-based RPG. I will say that it has some element of tactics to it. So your enemies are on a grid, 3x3 grid, and they all have their own placement on there, and you can manipulate where they stand based on some abilities that you have. So you use that to enable combos. So like you can knock one person into another person, and then the rest of your party attacks that group instead of just the one, because you're attacking basically a square, not an individual. And then so they'll do combos based on that. And you get more experience points by doing that. I'm of two minds with that concept. I like that idea, and I've always been interested in how you can combine a tactics RPG with just a traditional turn-based. I don't know if I see what they're doing as something I would like to do for like 50 hours, which is what a usual RPG takes. But I'm willing to keep trying because it's there's some interesting concepts to it. As far as time travel, where the gameplay picks up on that is, so far it hasn't really been a gameplay mechanic so much as a story mechanic, where I did something in my game and they're like, you're going to go back in time and do something completely different to save your party, because my party essentially got wiped out, and then I went back in time. But so far, it's all been through the story. Now, I'm sure based on what I've seen so far, I can see where they're going to integrate it, where it's more of a gameplay mechanic as opposed to just a story mechanic. So I'm kind of excited to see how that goes, and I don't know. I'm impressed, and then in other ways, not so impressed. Graphically, most 3DS games I feel look a lot better than this one. I've noticed that. I'm not sure, because it reminds me kind of like of Final Fantasy IX when they remade it. I still like that game, but you'll notice in like the HD remaster of it that the character sprites were not sprites, I guess, but the character models and stuff were spruced up significantly, but the backgrounds were not. So there's like a very big disconnect. I think you can fix it in mods, which I might actually do. But there's a difference between them, and it's pretty noticeable. In Radiant Historia Perfect Chronology, it's very noticeable. Your characters are just very almost like outlined and very digital looking, and the backgrounds are more matte or almost look like a lot smoother. And so when the characters walk on it, there's a juxtaposition that's kind of uncomfortable. I'm not sure why that is, or if they just didn't bother to fix that or something. And then things that you can interact with on the screen are also like the characters, like they're meant to be. They're seen as different than the backgrounds. So that part is a little bit odd. It gives it kind of a cheap looking feel to it, which I don't really care for. But I kind of give it a pass because I understand it's a DS game and they're trying to recreate that and just add a bunch of content to it. So I try to look past it. The characters themselves seem kind of interesting. It also has an issue that I'm seeing in a lot of RPGs, especially this era, that I don't care for, but I also understand why it's there. There's a lot of talking. And maybe I'm still in the early stages of it, but it's like I don't need to hear everybody's little detail about everything they're thinking. I feel like a lot of this stuff I can infer. So, but they still do it sometimes. Like I know SMT, Soul Hackers. I don't even think it's called SMT anymore, but Soul Hackers 2 had a lot of talking in it, and I just kind of dealt with it because there is a good game underneath it. So this game, I'm hoping, has that as well. So those are my initial thoughts on Radiant Historia. I wish I could say more, but that's where I stand with it. I'm going to keep playing it, although I have some other priorities, so I don't know how it'll fit into that.
Is this a remake of the DS game? Is that right?
Yeah, Radiant Historia.
Okay.
It's not that much remade though. It's mostly just added content and just an excuse to cash in on the 3DS RPG fans.
That's what it seems like.
Is this an excuse to cash in on a DS game?
Yeah, the 3DS had a lot of them.
Sorry, I had to repause my question.
Yeah.
I've always heard of this one, but it just isn't one that's ever been on my radar. Would I like it?
No.
Okay, thank you.
That is all. I don't know. There's Reddit groups, I'll say it nicely, that I've been on and seen, and they make some pretty bold statements, and usually they're pretty unfounded, but they're like, if you think Chrono Trigger's time travel is good, I mean, you think Chrono Trigger is a good game about time travel, Radiant Historia is way better. And I kind of roll my eyes at stuff like that because it's clearly inflammatory. But I wanted to give it a chance, and so far it's been fine. I'm willing to keep going. I don't know that they're even like in the same league of games. And I don't necessarily mean that like Chrono Trigger's in a better league, although I do think that. But I just see it as they're completely different games. Like Radiant Historia is very anime. Even when you boot it up, it's like got the rock music with some anime girl shrieking at you. So it's like Chrono Trigger is not that, and I feel like they're aiming for very different things. But I'm curious at the least. Isn't
that intro like remake exclusive, like all those animated cutscenes? I feel like that's not on the DS.
I have no idea. I couldn't tell you.
I played this on DS for like a little bit, and then my experience was that I found it was convoluted, especially the time travel thing, to the point where I wasn't grasping it. I'm not a Chrono Trigger stan or anything, but it is straightforward, especially with the time travel and everything. So I can appreciate that about that. I would have to like really commit to this game, I feel like, and I don't know that it's warranted. What I do know is that a lot of people, Chrono Trigger was on the DS as well as Radiant Historia, so like It's like, oh well, you want another great RPG on DS? Well, here you go, and it's very similar. Time will tell.
And you have Mario and Luigi Partners in Time too. Man, the DS had a lot of time RPGs.
There's a cooking mama. You can cook with time.
And I am a Chrono Trigger stan, thank you. And I wish Chrono Trigger had an anime opening AMV.
It does. But it's not. It's more normal, and it's also got an anime to it. There's a two episode anime of Chrono Trigger. That's
called an OVA.
It's pretty bizarre. Yeah.
Thank you, Alex.
You're welcome.
Chrono Trigger stan.
Chrono Trigger stan.
I appreciate your commitment to the Chrono Trigger timelines.
Love it.
Well,
all right, Alex. Thank you. Your pick, me or Spence?
On a, you know what? I want Spencer to go next because he doesn't like fighting games. So I want to know what the hell he's going to talk about.
You don't.
I do.
All right.
No, tell me.
All right. My game is WWF No Mercy for the N64.
That's a wrestling game.
It's a fighting game. It's fighting. Let me just find a trailer for this old ass game. Here you go. It's 53 seconds long.
Yeah, we're gonna loop that.
Whatever. So yeah, I played.
This is a YouTube short.
Yeah, I did WWF No Mercy. It came out in the year 2000. It's considered the best wrestling game by most people ever. And let me get some of the stats up for it real quick, just so I can.
Does it have John Cena?
No, it does not.
Damn it! We could have crossed paths. Because my game had John Cena.
How old was John Cena and what year was this? 97, you said?
What? 2000.
Oh, 2000?
Yeah.
How old was John Cena in 2000?
How old was he? Probably 22 or something. I would guess.
Oh.
He's
probably wrestling.
He should have been in Ohio Valley close to then, which is their territory where they work on new people. But this was developed by Ace Entertainment and AKI Corporation, and the publisher was THQ. It is probably the best feeling wrestling game that I've played. The newer ones are also good. I just have less experience with it because I'm just not really a modern fan. But it introduced a lot of really cool things, including ladder matches, a backstage brawling, tables, a lot of things that people just expected but never weren't in games at the time. It has an amazing roster, including Stone Cold Steve Austin, The Rock, Triple H, the Dudleys, the Hardys, Edge and Christian, a bunch of great characters. But it feels just so good. There's grappling, and there's light grappling and heavy grappling. Heavy grappling is a little bit harder to do, but you're able to do stronger, heavier moves like suplexes, backbreakers, and finishers. And the smaller light grapples you can do like more minor throws like hip tosses, and submissions. It has a lot of aerial combat, so you can do moves from the turnbuckle. There's not like a ton to say about it, but it's just really, really great. And it's always fun to play the characters that you like. Like me and my friend JD, friend of the show, and our girlfriend, we were in Vegas. We were at like an arcade and played this game because they just had it like as a ROM thing. And I destroyed them in a triple threat match as Triple H, the game, my favorite wrestler. So really classic game, and its legacy is pretty well cemented in wrestling fans' memories. So if you want a good wrestling game, it would be No Mercy 2000. It's still fun today. I played it recently.
Can you do a Royal Rumble?
You can, but it's not a legitimate Royal Rumble. So the normal rules for Royal Rumble is every 90 seconds another wrestler comes to the ring. Unfortunately, at this time, the game could not handle more than 4 players at the same time. So it becomes more of an elimination of when you get rid of one, another one will come out. So it's not really a Royal Rumble, but it's their attempt at a Royal Rumble. And ironically, there would be a game that came out just a little bit after this on the Dreamcast. Was it on Dreamcast or was it an arcade? It might have been the arcade called Royal Rumble, where they were able to put a lot more people in, but not on this one.
It probably was a Dreamcast.
Compared to real wrestling, which is does this match the level of entertainment?
Oh yeah, this game
like
is
to WWE or something.
This game is super fun to play. I mean, I put many hours with my friends on this one. It's just very arcadey. You can do ladder matches and just like jump off the ladder from the height of it onto people and put people through tables and stuff. It's super fun, and the controls are really tight. It has an aiming system, so you can use it by the C buttons, and the C left and C right will toggle which person you're looking at. So if you're doing multi-man matches, it's very easy to get who you're trying to get. But yeah, just it's a lot of fun, and any wrestling fan probably would tell you that this is one of the best.
Which one is it?
No Mercy. It's for the N64.
WWF, or just that's the title? No Mercy.
WWF No Mercy.
Gotcha. Yeah, I've always heard like the N64 wrestling games are like kind of like peak, when they were at their best.
Yeah, I don't remember. I don't think Warzone was on it, but I know Attitude was on it, and that is not very good. It's played more like a traditional fighting game. So if you wanted to do like suplexes, you had to do combos while you were in the ring, and nobody likes that game. It also really got good with the WCW game. I can't remember which one. It might have been Revenge. And then the same company did WrestleMania, which is really good. WrestleMania 2000, I should say. But No Mercy is the peak. Is the best that they ever did. And at the time when it was out, everyone was like, "They ain't gonna look any better than this. This is the best wrestling games they're ever gonna look." And if you look at them now, they just obviously look like N64 graphics, and they look horrifying.
Yeah. So do they have like those like GoldenEye,
Yes.
like GoldenEye facial models? Where they like look ugly, weird and ugly.
Yes, they look horrifyingly
Oh my
bad.
God.
I think the only people that take after them are like Bethesda people, but like specifically in the Royal Rumbles when they come out, it'll like zoom in on their face. It's like, don't. It's like, why do that? It looks so bad.
Oh. Yeah, I owned Ready to Rumble Boxing back in the day, and even back then it looked horrible. Guy's eyes here and here.
Yeah.
That was the charm of like realistic visuals back in those days. Even N64, PS1, it's like it wasn't doable.
Yeah, I think Zelda. I'm thinking about games where they didn't look bad, and Zelda did it right, where it was just very like simple faces and more cartoony.
Well, they like still, it's like anything stylized like that. A lot of the platformers back then were stylized. Like a lot of the stylized games hold up pretty well. But any of the games, like even like Resident Evil and stuff, PS1, Tomb Raider, a lot of those games the character models look horrendous.
Yeah.
Do you want to guess what THQ stands for?
No, I have no idea.
It's Toy Headquarters.
Oh, there you go.
You're welcome.
What do modern wrestling games not do as well?
I think they're played more as they just have like a lot of buttons. They're still good. They're not bad or anything.
That was the ultimate grandpa statement
right. I know. It's just like, they're just hard for me because like
there's just a lot
special
of
guest.
buttons.
I got kings.
It's like a lot of like when you have them, like they're more simulation and less arcadey, and I can appreciate that, but it's like picking up the guy and then press triangle, and then while you're pushing triangle, press R1. And you can do a thing, and if you're doing R1 and R2 at the same time, and then press X, it's like, whoa, dude. I just want to hit the guy with a chair. Like that's literally all I came here for. Like, can we just go back to that? But no, they're fine. They're just, and also, I think because WWE is like the only company in town, really. I mean, AEW exists, but their game was trash. They're still working on it, but like. WWE doesn't really have to make a great game, and so the game does not look that good. And it's like they'd have no incentive to make it look good because it's literally the only official like wrestling game in town. So
I haven't even seen them. The only wrestling game I've seen recently was like, remember that like Nintendo Direct during the pandemic? They were like, it's a partner Direct. It was like the first one of those.
Battlegrounds or something.
Yeah, they
With
showed that
little
damn Battlegrounds game, and they were like little chibi a little chibi John Cena came out and like fucking did a little spin or something. I was like, what? Nintendo, stop wasting my time. Why am I here?
yeah, that's no good.
Yeah, so I don't know what modern wrestling games. You know, I really wish I knew because I don't know anything about wrestling, but I did play a wrestling game back in the day on the Xbox, the original Xbox, and I don't know what it was.
Rumble Roses? Oh no, that was on 360.
No, like a licensed wrestling game.
Oh, okay.
I don't know what it was.
But like obviously from WWE at the time, I would guess.
Yeah, one of those. I think my dad had it, and I was just fucking around with it, you know, because it's a game that was in the house, and I was like, whatever.
Do you guys know why it's called WWE now instead of WWF?
Mm-mm.
Because there's a organization called the World Wildlife Fund, and they sued WWF because they thought that it infringed on their name. And they won, so they had to change their name. So they took advantage of it because Vince McMahon really hates the idea of wrestling, which is kind of ironic. But he would prefer to call it entertainment, so they just changed it to World Wrestling Entertainment. And you're not even supposed to call them wrestlers anymore. You're supposed to call them superstars.
Our giraffes don't wrestle. We don't want people thinking our giraffes are wrestling.
Yeah. It's kind of sad. It's kind of bizarre, but.
Superstar. Hey.
All right.
Yeah. Quick, Spencer. Rate the N64 controller. Go.
Rate it? Like, give it a number?
Yeah.
Nothing less than 10.
4.
Out of 4? Damn, dude.
Out of 10. I like certain elements of it, but it's a little wonky. It's got 3 prongs. What the fuck? And then
yeah, it does.
The C buttons are too many buttons. Not necessary.
Too many buttons.
That's why Smash Bros on the N64 is his favorite.
This seems
so
like the
many
ultimate
buttons.
This seems like the ultimate little brother game where you make your little brother use a Mad Catz controller. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I guess I'm a twin, so I never had a little brother issue. It's just brother.
Well, who popped out first?
He did by like a minute.
So you're the little brother. Don't
really.
Yeah, if he popped out first, he's older than you technically. By like a second.
Suppose.
Alex.
Yeah, maybe I should go first because mine sucks.
Just with your best suck.
I blame Alex for this. He did not give me much time.
You could have said no.
I did not have much time to pick. So, I played Pocket Mortys. It's
I talked about that last year.
Not on a Game Talk though, right?
No, it was on the knockoff episode.
Gotcha. Okay, good. This is an app for your mobile devices, and it's where you play as Rick from the hit TV show Rick and Morty, which I am not particularly a fan of. But you collect different Mortys, and it's like basically the exact same thing as Pokemon, except you're collecting Mortys, like different forms of Morty, like of him in different either attitudes or different states of living, and you travel the world through this weird like teleporter, and you collect badges, which they're called badges, but there's no point to it other than it's just like a token. And you collect more different Mortys, and it's everything that Pokemon is. This is, except it also has, like the mobile game stuff where it's like you can buy upgrades and buy different Mortys with real money, which, good lord, if you were a person that was doing that, I mean, you need to really adjust your priorities in life. But it did have one thing that I like, which is a crafting system. So as you're progressing through the game, you can collect things that you see on the ground, and it's not all just potions, which are called serums in this, but it's not all just that. It's like little trinkets that you can use to actually craft items, which actually is a pretty cool idea that they should probably put in Pokemon, which just, it's another way to expand it. But just like Alex said, they probably won't because nobody gives a shit when they play Pokemon. They just like seeing Pikachu. I'm a little bit, I mean, disappointed is a weird word because my expectations were not exactly like in the clouds. But I was surprised at the lackluster nature. Like, I thought that they would put voice acting in it because they're, you know, those characters are so iconic. Like, I thought that you would get to hear them talk more often. But no, you just read the dialogue. I was just very disappointed at the lack of effort that went into it. But like as far as phone games go, it's pretty much what you would think of when you think of like, I hate phone games. It meets all those requirements.
So why? Okay, so if you're not a fan of Rick and Morty, which is fine, I do like that show, but I'm just asking out of curiosity, what compelled you to play the game?
Because it was like Pokemon, and I was like, I mean, I don't hate Rick and Morty. I don't watch it actively or follow it. I've liked a couple episodes, and it's like, well, it's, you know, it's interesting that they made a game out of that. Like, I'd be curious. I read some reviews, and they weren't exactly glowing, but I said, you know, maybe there's something there. But there really isn't much. Even with fans, I don't know if they really would really like it that much.
So I've asked my kids, like, not my birth children, just the that I work with.
I was like, whoa, Teddy has kids?
Yeah, surprise, button mapper reveal, 2022. What up? Bad life. So I've asked my kids, what is the deal with Rick and Morty? Because I don't watch it, and maybe it's like past my time. And they said it's like dark humor, like is probably the best way to describe what the series has going for it. How true does that reign, and then how does it apply to the game?
I don't think it's dark. At least what I've seen, it hasn't been that dark. To me, it's
pessimistic. That's what it is.
Yeah, maybe. To me, it's just like Adult Swim. Like, it just kind of follows the same, all the, like a lot of Adult Swim tropes, which is like really, really almost like meta comedy or just like goofy. Just like people have said that it to them, Rick and Morty is like a really intellectual show, and I don't really understand that. Like, I get that they're like, it's very sci-fi oriented and has to do with some science-y concepts, but outside of that, I don't really understand the other part. Maybe I just don't follow the lore or don't know the show as well, and I'm missing a key function here. But as far as the game goes, it has, like, in the writing, it has little pieces of that. Like that. There's some like chuckle-worthy lines that are in there if you're reading closely. Like if you do like one of the badge fights, it'll say like they can give you more money. You know, I can't remember what the currency is in it, but it's not normal money. But if they can give you more money if you watch like a video, like those terrible phone apps tend to do. Like, if you watch this advertisement, we'll give you some more money. And then you can select no. And I guess I appreciate that if you select no, it says, well, we'll just stare at each other right now and be miserable. It's something like that. So there's like a little like tongue-in-cheek, like, okay, you're not going to play this phone thing, we'll play around with you or something. So, you know, I can appreciate that, and it's chuckle-worthy, but certainly not like, don't expect like a full experience of Rick and Morty going into it.
Yeah, I said I enjoyed the show. To kind of answer your question a little more, Teddy, I think it's Rick and Morty is to me always felt very pessimistic. In fact, like in the way that they present the world, because they try to present everything through science. Like even like the idea of love is just explained as like a chemical in your brain. It doesn't mean anything to the characters. But which I guess that's the humor of it, is just like how cynical everything is in the show. But to me, Rick and Morty always felt like a show about smart ideas for dumb people, because people like to say like, oh, it's so intellectual, but really what they're saying is like, oh, they talk about like a scientific theory, and that's it. Like they just that's just like the basis for the episode. It doesn't explore that. It's just like uses that for the episode. Yeah. So there's the idea of like multiple universes and stuff. Which again, I like the show. I'm a big fan of Dan Harmon, who also did Community, which is a great show. So
it's good for like 2 seasons.
Well, 3 seasons. 4 is where it gets bad. So anyway. Just saying, that's what Rick and Morty is, really.
Who'd win in a fight, Rick or Morty?
Rick.
Yeah, well, Morty is just like a dumb boy,
a spineless kid.
Yeah, Rick would vaporize him.
Rick's like a egotistical like genius.
There's no like underdog scenario.
Rick and Morty, a true underdog story.
Where he grows the spine.
Yeah,
according to science.
Now, I mentioned it before. I never actually played this one much, but in terms of just like the battling, how close is it to Pokemon?
It's like 1-to-1.
Okay.
Again with that cynical look on the world, it has a rock paper scissors system like Pokemon does, except it's literally just rock paper and scissors. Like some of them have rock, some of them have scissors, some of them have paper, and so that. But otherwise, I mean, it's literally the exact same thing as Pokemon. Like if you've played it, you would know exactly how to play. It's like a 1-to-1 basically. It's a little bit harder in some ways, but not by much.
So it's like a parody game, though, basically.
Yeah. And I just wish I'm just disappointed at some of the attempts at cashing in, but I guess I shouldn't be that surprised because like if the game is if the makers of it are cynical about this kind of thing, but then do it themselves, it's a little bit like, what are you really trying to say because you just did it?
Yeah. It's like Yeah, no, it's like I couldn't imagine actually like spending money on this game. This is like a game that I would download to like be like, ha, and then I would just delete it.
Yeah. It's become Nelson Muntz for 20 seconds.
Yeah. That's it.
Well, that was fun.
Yeah. All right. What else I do with my day? Yeah. I can imagine being like, I have to get Fish Morty.
Yeah.
Did you see Lamp Morty?
Some of them are very uninspired. It's kind of disappointing.
What was the lamest one you saw?
I can't. I have it right here. Let me check because my party has some of that. Your Mortys. I'm going into the Your Mortys section, and my Mortys are Morty, which is who you start with. Scruffy Morty. Blue Shirt Morty. Mind Blower Morty.
Ori. Ooh.
Maury in the Blind Forest.
Ori.
But Scruffy Morty is Morty, except his hair has a couple like wrinkle things in it. And then Blue Shirt Morty, predictably, is Morty with a blue shirt.
Mm.
And then Mind Blower Morty is actually interesting It's Morty with like a futuristic helmet on.
And play.
Rick and Morty, everybody. That's all I got. I played. Drum roll, please. Sonic Boom, Fire and Ice.
Wow!
On the,
Ow!
I
on
love
the
to hear
Nintendo
this.
3DS.
This
Ow!
is like the sequel, right?
Yes.
Okay. Some
Why?
might call it a Sonic 3, Sonic Boom 3. Continue.
The reason I chose Sonic Boom was because I wanted something that would be the antithesis of the other Sonic game I played recently.
Okay.
It's semi 3D, whereas the other one was 2D. It is based off like a kid's TV show, I believe. There's a Sonic Boom TV show. I don't know if it's still going on, but that's kind of what it's based off of. Whereas the other one is based off of the classic Genesis games. This one has a lot of story and dialogue in it, which the other one did not. And this one's made for a more modern audience, which the other one is made for a more classic, original Genesis audience. So I wanted to play Sonic Boom to experience the other side of Sonic, the newer look, the newer gameplay mechanics and everything. Sonic Boom is the story basically of fighting global warming as Sonic, and Tails, and Knuckles, and Amy, and a girl named Stick.
Sticks.
Sticks. Her name is Sticks? I thought it was
Yeah.
Stick because it's a
Sticks.
All right. It is you're fighting Dr. Robotnik, and he's got a robot that you that you follow around the world through a bunch of islands, and you just stop him. You close these like port or geysers or whatever, and it introduces the concept of fire and ice, which is in the title, and you get to use fire to melt ice and ice to freeze water. And you use that in a combination of your jumping and regular platforming throughout the world. The shocking thing for me was that I actually liked it a lot more than Mania. I think it's generally, the style is much better and much more in line with what I would expect from something called Sonic. It was faster paced. It was a lot more frantic. I like the spin dash stuff where you're in the air and you can like attack things with the jump button. I think it makes for a lot more fluid motion. I guess there's a couple complaints. One of them is that the quote unquote comedy, I understand that it's aimed for a younger audience, but it is cringeworthy bad throughout. So if there's any way to not have that would be good. Also, the game was too easy. And I understand that there's also multiple ways to play it. You can play each level as multiple characters. There's many collectibles throughout. But as just a straight run through, this game, I think I died like maybe 5 times throughout the entire game. The game took me 3 hours to beat. Whereas the other game I played, more classic Sonic, took me probably 6 hours with a lot of game overs. I wish that Sonic Boom Fire and Ice was somewhere in the middle of those two. But I really like the graphics. I like the sense of speed. And another thing, semi nitpick, is that the environments weren't as varied as you would get in like a Genesis title. Also, the music wasn't as good. So, I don't know. I guess I'm kind of all over the place with it. But I really do think it's like just better in a lot of ways. And I don't know that I recommend it. Just because it's so easy. Like, it's clearly a kid's game. I wish they would adapt it to being more difficult. And maybe I would be more apt to recommend it. But I like where they're going with it.
He's the reason for our boom.
Did you know that fire actually melts ice?
Spencer, you actually played a Sonic title I've never played because I don't touch the Sonic Boom stuff. It happened. There's the 3 games, and then it died.
This one is considered the best from what I read. Fire and Ice is the best of the Sonic Booms.
Yeah,
which isn't saying much.
Yeah, I remember when it came out, and like you were like, it's okay, and I was like, yeah, I still don't care.
I think you just liked it more because it's on 3DS.
Maybe.
What'd you think about Beefhead Knuckles?
He had a weird mechanic where you would like dig, and if you dug in a circle, it would destroy everything in the middle of the circle. It kind of just felt like a really gimmicky touch game, I guess, even though I didn't use touch.
Yeah.
No, anything story related, like with these characters, they're all really annoying.
Yeah, I've seen the cartoon show. I haven't watched a whole lot of it, but I've seen like a few episodes, and they're really like, their characters are really like stereotyped, right? Like,
oh yeah,
like Sonic's like the cocky leader, like arrogant leader, and then Tails is like the nerdy mechanic, and then Amy is just like the independent strong girl, and then
Knuckles is like the dude bro.
Yeah, the dude bro moron, and Styx
Yeah.
is like just a crazy person.
Dr. Robotnik is very, very clearly inspired by the Minion movie, whatever that is.
His design, yeah, he looks like Gru.
Yeah, exactly like it. It's like borderline like, should we get the lawyers involved? Like, it's very clearly that.
Wow.
So, which I get. I understand why they would do it. It just seems a little bit lazy and perhaps illegal. Yeah.
Here's a question. You know how, like, in the other Sonic game that you were playing, it's a little more simpler. It's like, okay, spin dash, okay, jump. You know, not really like homing attacks and stuff. With Fire and Ice, did you find all of the game mechanics, like, convoluted in any sense?
No. And I think that's to its detriment because it had a lot. It didn't have that many mechanics to it. It had some additional jumps, like it had double jumping, actually triple jumping. Technically, if you consider the X button gave you like a big burst of speed in one direction, so really almost triple jumping. And then it had the spin dash thing, and then it had fire and ice, so you'd swap between being either fire or ice to get around. They didn't really do much with the fire and ice thing. They did a couple different things, like you could light these barrels on fire, or like explosives or whatever, and light the wick on fire. And that's about as deep as they went with the fire. And then the deepest they went with the ice was you could freeze water that was already moving, like on a waterfall thing, which was obvious, but I guess it was kind of cool. But I think they could have gone way more clever and creative with it, but they didn't really. And again, I get that it's for kids and it's supposed to be easier and sort of dumbed down, and I guess, but I would have liked to see them kick it into a higher gear.
I played the demo. I just didn't like how every button was like a different thing. I felt like I was like constantly looking down at the bottom screen to figure out like, oh, this is the lasso, or like I don't even remember what the things were. This was years ago. I just think like maybe because I'm so accustomed to classic Sonic that maybe I don't know if I can get into it.
And that's why I figured I wanted to try both, because I'm like new to both at the same time.
Well, Boom is not my Sonic. Boom is like its own thing.
No, I know. That's what I mean. It's like there's like a side of people that grew up with Sonic in the Sega time, like the Genesis and all that. And so there's that, which is obviously Sonic Mania. And then there's the newer Sonic, which I don't know if there's like really like a fan base for it, or if it's just like what they're trying to hit kids with, or what exactly is going on there. But I wanted to try that and just kind of experiment with both sides of it. And they're definitely very, very different. I really do not like classic Sonic's like really floaty controls. I really hate them. So this didn't have that, and that was like a huge plus for me. I just think they handle momentum really poorly.
When's the Sonic Boom Rise of Lyric map out?
What did that come out on?
The Wii U. That's the really terrible one. I don't even own it. I had to buy a copy.
Oh no! Let's not do it.
We need fan demand for that one. Let's just say.
Yeah.
You could have just played like Forces or something.
I guess. I started that a while ago.
That's like actual modern Sonic. They haven't touched a boom since 2016. It's dead in the water.
I wasn't really into Sonic Forces at all. I think it felt too much like the Genesis one, but not. I don't know. It was odd. I thought the level design choices were weird. I couldn't get into it.
At least with Fire and Ice, you're getting a 2D platformer. With Forces, you're getting like a whole bunch of stuff.
Yeah, that game is weird.
I agree. Sorry, Alex.
It's okay. You don't just. I'm not Sega, so it's okay.
Okay.
I was surprised, because I've heard lots of negative things about Sonic Boom, and I see some of it. Although I think most of it was directed towards Rise of Lyric.
Yeah, and you know what? They came out with patches to remedy some of that stuff, from what I understand. The criticisms.
Oh, okay. Like I know there was glitch, like ton of glitches, right, at the beginning of that. That is unfathomable considering the complexity of this game. But
isn't that weird though that like Sonic seems to undergo overhauls after community angst? You know, the Sonic movie, Rise of Lyric.
Yeah, it's a weird
I don't know
dichotomy.
if that's good or bad.
I can't tell if it's bad or good because it's like it's cool that they're listening to their audience, but also how could your instincts be so far off that when anybody sees anything you make, they're like, "What are you doing?"
I mean, it's been that way for a while. Sonic 06 was like they tried to do like a Final Fantasy level plot and like a world, you know, and then like everybody hated it, and then like after that they were like, "Okay, we're only doing like old school Sonic from here on out, pretty much."
The idea of implementing a Final Fantasy plot to begin with in anything other than Final Fantasy is just a setup for failure.
Yeah. So yeah, Sonic's always been like a weird. I don't know. They've always just like stretched him and like I don't know, made him different, and I don't know. I think it's kind of the appeal for me is that like there's like different eras of Sonic. You could look at like Mario, for example, and like. You know, New Super Mario Bros. On the Switch and, you know, Mario Bros. 3 on the NES, you know, it's pretty similar. The same thing, basically.
Yeah, Sonic went through, like, he was like a baby, kind of. Like, he had like a distended belly. Maybe he's he's like really sick or suffering from, like, starvation. And then he went to like a normal looking, like, not normal looking hedgehog creature. No, he went to like more of a teen look. I kind of remember that.
Well, he burns a lot of calories because he goes fast.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense.
He's got to.
I have to say, though, I do respect the efforts, I guess, because, you know, with Mario, with like New Super Mario Bros., like the criticisms are like it's too samey.
Yeah.
At least with Sonic, they switch it up, and people seem to like 3D era Sonic. You know, I don't. Aside from Rise of Lyric and 06, which I think are anomalies, people seem to appreciate most of the games.
Oh yeah, Adventure? Like people like swear by that game that it's like the greatest thing ever. And I disagree, but at the same to your credit, yeah, like they love it. They're into that.
I'm just good with the classics, man, but anyways. This was a little fiery, but we cooled it down with some ice.
He's the reason for our boom.
BM.
All right. I don't know if mine counts as a game per se, but
Then why are you here?
what am I even doing here, right? I don't know. But I picked the Simpsons Cartoon Studio. It was a game that was released in 1996. And it was for CD-ROM on your PC. And I played this a lot. It was a game where you could make Simpsons episodes on your computer, and I think this game is important to me because it helped push me into wanting to do video editing and work. I wanted to make movies, but I never really could do that. But at least I could. It got me into video editing. I was a huge Simpsons is really the only cartoon that I've ever liked. I wasn't really able to watch cartoons. I never had cable, so I didn't have Nickelodeon or Cartoon Network, so those were out. Every Saturday I played soccer, so by the time I got home, it was like Family Matters was on. So The Simpsons was really the only cartoon I ever grew up with and liked. And then when this game came out, we had here's a little history lesson: a Windows 3.1 computer. Brian might know what that is, but that was the old operating system. And my parents are 2 generations ahead of me, so they don't really understand technology and were afraid of it, so they never really got computers. So that was the best we got. This game did not run very well on a Windows 3.1. It would constantly crash. It would constantly just freeze and require a lot of processing to figure out what's going on. But as a kid, kind of like Brian said, you get trapped with something and you just make do, and you try to find the joy out of it. And I found a lot of joy in placing all the characters. You could put them in the house. You could put them in the nuclear power plant. You could put them in. You could put them in hell. That was weird. But you could create these scenes, and it really wasn't like making Simpsons episodes. It was more making like stage plays almost, because they were the whole set. There were no close-ups. All the characters were pretty far away. So you could put like Homer on there and just drag him around for clips and scenes and make him do stuff. You could grab a lot of the main characters and a lot of the side characters too, although they had limited actions once they got to like Sideshow Bob. It was more like they could do one thing. I think Chief Wiggum, you could pick him and all he did was like eat donuts out of a thing. Like that was it. You could put sounds in from the show and music from the show and try to make like a thing. And there were transitions and effects. And I used to try to make as much crazy stuff as I could. I think the most ambitious thing I ever made was like a Pokemon battle between Bart and Homer, and they just like threw, I think like Santa's Little Helper versus the cat at each other and tried to make them maybe look like they were fighting. But they were all terrible. The game itself is pretty horrible. It's I watched something this morning just to try to refresh my memory on this, and it is exactly as I remembered it, which was kind of cool. But it was like it took up a ton of my time, not just because I spent a lot of time making it, because the thing you had to process a lot. So I understood that it would just be forever. I didn't realize if I just upgraded the computer into like anything recent. I think at the time it could have been like Windows 95 or maybe 98 by then. But if I would have done that, it would have run perfectly fine. But it was just a disaster on my computer. Then it would have been awesome. But it's very influential on me. And even though it was terrible, I look back fondly on making these terrible cartoons.
There were a lot of those style of games like at that time based on like different properties. Because I had one as well that was like Tiny Toons one. It was like a Tiny Toons studio.
Cool.
Yeah, and it was the same thing where you can like place the characters, and I would have them like try to do like different. I would try to like recreate like Roadrunner cartoons, but with like I don't know what the Tiny Toon versions of those characters are called, but like not Wile E and not Roadrunner.
Yeah. Good at it? You feel like you understood the editing process pretty well?
Yeah, I think it taught me editing. It even did it by frames. So you could edit by frame, and that's where I learned how to do like very specific cuts and transitions. Like you know, if you're going to switch between two scenes, you don't want the same character to just be standing in the same spot because it wouldn't make any sense. So you'd have to cut them out of that frame going forward. So it taught me a lot about that stuff early on. I don't know how much of it I would credit to, but it certainly got my feet wet. So that was kind of cool.
Got the juices flowing, right?
Yeah, I got a couple juices going on in me, shooting at me.
That's not what I said. I said I'm shooting the juice.
Just shooting the juices over here. Weird story that it sparked in my memory too is I got this. I don't know why my mom did it because we were very poor. We were very cheap. But I think it was in 3rd grade that I got this, and I don't know if your guys' schools did this, but there's like a big scam where they would send your school like a catalog full of books. It'd be like a book thing, and they're like, you can buy books off of this catalog, and we'll send them to you guys. I distinctly remember it came in that, and it was like they were doing video games at the time, but they're supposed to be like semi-educational. I guess this counted as educational. And they're like, you can get the Simpsons game in this catalog. And I was like, oh my God, I have to have this. And I guess mom was like, okay. I don't know why she approved that, but she did that time. I'd certainly asked for other things that she didn't approve of. But I remember getting this game in that catalog. Like a couple months later, they sent out another catalog. And this is where I think I might be like, there might be something wrong with my brain because I got the catalog and I didn't want anything from it. And then the teacher at one point said, like, you have to have this turned in by Friday. And in my brain, I was like, oh, or else I'm going to fail school. Like, if I don't have this turned in, I won't pass this class or something. And so I remember, like, begging my mom. I was like, I need to buy something off of this catalog or else I'm not going to pass math. And she's like, what are you talking about? You're an idiot. And then I remember the day of, like, bringing the empty catalog to my teacher, just, like, sobbing. Being like, I tried my best, but we couldn't get anything. And she's like, why do you care so much? Like, who cares? And I just remember thinking I was going to fail out of school because we couldn't order off of the catalog. So
there were a lot of those like scammy type things for schools where it's like they'll sell books, but then they'll sell like other things that are like
yeah, book adjacent.
Book adjacent. Like I'm pretty sure I still have them in storage somewhere. I have a bunch of like cheat code books that I used to get. That's by definition a book, but it serves no educational purpose.
Yeah.
It's just like, what cheat code do I use for Bubble Bobble on Game Boy Advance? Like those are the types of things in the book.
Nice.
Yeah. Yeah, I had that stuff too. I had Tom Watt and Book It. Book It was
you were there when books were invented, so that was
he made the first video game book actually was printed by him.
Yeah, that's right.
Predicting video games.
Avoiding the hole.
Yeah.
By Brian. I got Kings.
How to dodge the hole.
You got to use your neck to graze out of the hole once you get in there. You got to escape from the guy trying to catch you.
Remembers it. It's like you wrote it yesterday.
But it was not. You did not write it yesterday. You wrote it many, many, many years ago.
Oh, that was back in 84, 85, something like that.
I remember you wrote a book.
Days.
You wrote a book like one day people will be playing games with a controller on a screen thing.
You'll
on
have
a monitor. Yeah.
You won't use a joystick. You'll use a directional pad. I think they call it.
You said there'll be light.
Yeah.
Projected light onto a slab.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That you'll be and you're all like, you're crazy.
And they're throwing their poop at him.
They're like playing with their stick and hoop, and they're like, "What? What are you talking about?" What?
Yeah. He said, "You got to use fire." They said, "What is that?" He said, "Let me show you."
Yeah, me warmer now. Me feel warm. Yeah, it's
Brian Cass Sizzle.
Hey, that was good.
That's
Alex.
a good reference. Yeah.
I think I got it. See, I know some stuff.
Yeah. Not as much as Brian, though.
It's a waste MP. Well, you could have used Sizz. Yeah, Sizzle's a group spell, but that's fine.
Sizz,
stuff. You gotta appreciate what you got.
Sizz is still a group spell.
You had a group of people.
Brian?
Yeah, you had a group of people. So you had
I'm thinking of
Frizz.
What am I thinking of?
With an F.
Frizz. Yeah.
Frizzle.
I stand correct.
Ultimate fire.
Faux shizzle. I use faux shizzle.
Frizzle, faux shizzle.
Faux shizzle, faux frizzle. I'm gonna say that every time now. That's right. Faux shizzle, faux frizzle.
Well, Alex, and then there was one.